Okay. So a few weeks ago, I was doing a long drive. And when I do long drives, I look for interesting podcasts. I stumbled upon the Retail Transformation podcast. Was surprised I actually never heard of it before, considering the line of work that we're in. And it's hosted by a gentleman by the name of Oliver Banks, based out of the UK. A lot of awesome conversations. And one in particular was with Chris Walton, who a lot of you may have known, spoken at RetailSpaces in the past, co-founder of OmniTalk, also a senior contributor to Forbes. And they had a great just talk on innovation versus ideation in retail. And long story short, we had this event coming up. We reached out to Ali and said, hey, would you like to moderate a discussion? You've got a lot of great insights and can bring an international flavor to retail spaces. So he agreed, and here he is now, Oliver Banks. Welcome to the screen.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome from the UK.
From it's
yeah.
Great to.
And I hear you guys are locked down again. So, is that where you're locked down? Yeah. You're locked down in that cabin?
Well, there could be worse places to be locked down, I think. Yeah, things are continually changing here for sure.
Well, awesome. So Ali, I don't want to take too much of the time for this session here because I know we've got a tight schedule. So I'm going to hand it over to you. You're going to introduce the session, but thank you so much for staying up a little bit later and coming in to host this awesome discussion. I'll let you take it from here and I'll come back on the end. So to you, Ali.
Absolutely. Well, I get to start cocktail hour a little bit earlier, so that's pretty cool. Reimagining the in-store experience in just a few minutes is we're going to be going at quite a pace. And I'll just be introducing the panel in just a second, but I thought really I'd kickstart by thinking about how we're going to theme it. And I thought, let's theme it around AC/DC, right? And I thought, no, it doesn't really fit. So I thought DC/AC, that is during COVID and after COVID. So we're going to split the conversation into two parts. And I'm really actually keen to hear from you guys watching. How are you splitting your time? How much of your time are you thinking right at the moment, right here, right now, relatively short term, pretty much focused on 2020, versus how much of your time are you thinking about 2021 and beyond? I'd love it if you could just drop your thoughts into the chat box, and we'll just help to frame the conversation for you. So I've got a cracking panel to dive into this today. So I'd just like to just very quickly highlight who we've got. So we've got Jeff Gaul, SVP of Store Development at Sephora. Hey, Jeff.
Hey there, how are you?
Very good, very good. We've got Dean Handspiker, VP of Store Development at INDOCHINO. Hey, Dean. Next,
Thank you.
Got
Thank you for having me.
Co-CEO at American Dream. How are things, Mark?
Hello.
And finally, that brilliant podcast guest that I had, Chris Walton, co-CEO of OmniTalk. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man.
Super. So just as those splits are coming in, we've got quite a varied split as to how people are spending their time. So quite a lot of forward thinking as well, which is really great. And I do want to kick off though, thinking about things right here, right now in 2020. You know, safety as an experience is, personally to me, I'm not sure about you guys, but to me, still feels a little weird to say or to think about. So really, I'd like to start with you, Jeff, thinking about, you know, your high touch point at Sephora. How has your in-store experience changed during the past few months? And I suppose, what are you most proud of about how your brand has responded?
Great question. You know, obviously, COVID has changed everything in how we operate. You know, when the virus first started spreading, you know, every health organization said, you know, you're not supposed to touch your face. And as you know, at Sephora, that is our primary. We had to imagine the way we operated so that we could make our clients feel safe and secure and still want to explore the amazing experience that we have in our stores across the world. So one of the first things that we did is we really reimagined the whole entire store experience from a hygiene perspective. We took the 2 months that our stores were closed and we created a 90-page handbook for our beauty advisors so that they knew exactly what to do. So things like, how to engage with a client when they walk in. We created a new position called a line coordinator that greeted all the people as they walked into the store. We knew that we would have to put hand sanitizer on them, explain that, we couldn't do in-store services, but ways that we could accommodate them in other ways. So we still, of course, want to surprise and delight our client in every way possible. Unfortunately, now it's through hygiene and making sure that they feel safe and making sure that they know that every surface is wiped down and all of our people have been, had their temperature taken, and that we're doing everything possible to keep everyone in a safe and secure environment. But we hope to continue to move forward as we can to create unique ideas that are not always hygiene based, but that's really what our focus is right now. So that's what I'm probably most proud of, is the way we have pivoted during a really difficult, challenging time period, and made sure that our clients feel really terrific about coming back to us. And the feedback has been off the charts. They really have been appreciative of what we've done, how we do it. And many say that when they're in a shopping center, they feel most secure in our stores because they know what we've done and how we are taking care of it, from wiping down their credit card if they hand it to us, to making sure that they have hand sanitizer available to them, to making sure that the bag they used been sanitized and that it's been put away after their use for somebody else not to use it for 24 hours. Little things like that just make a huge difference.
That's absolutely awesome. I think you've really gone to town on making sure that feeling of safety is there. And just whilst we're with you, Jeff, what are your perspectives from how the rest of the world has responded and how it's differed as well across different territories?
Yeah, so, obviously Sephora is global. We're in 36 different countries across the world. And I think one of the challenges that we're facing here in the United States is that there is not a mandated mask requirement. And so, we have, certain, folks in certain parts of the country that just don't want to wear them. And it is causing our numbers, unfortunately, to spike. So while we're seeing our traffic return to normal and our sales return to pre-COVID numbers in other parts of the country, like China, like Korea, like Japan, like Canada, we're not really seeing that yet in the United States, which is obviously extremely troubling. And so we're hoping that people can really just embrace science and understand that right now, until we have a vaccine, that the best case that we have is to wear a mask, to stay, socially distanced, at least 6 feet apart, wash your hands. Those are really the best, forms of safety that we can do right now. And as long as we have people that are fighting it, it's going to be a challenge, and we're going to see numbers continue to spike, and even healthy people just be afraid to leave their house. And so we're doing everything we can to accommodate those folks as well through our online endeavors, making sure that we reach out to them in different ways, remind them that they're about to run out of their favorite product, things like that. But we're hoping that the United States can kind of get in line with the rest of the world and just understand that, science is for real. Let's wear a mask. Let's do what we need to do to keep ourselves and our neighbors safe.
That's advice for everyone around the world, I think. So, Dean, I'd like to shift it over to you. So, INDOCHINO, relatively new onto the physical retail scene. Obviously, been going a few years in stores. I'd really like to ask the very same question to you, Dean. How has the in-store experience shifted during the past few months? And again, what are you really most proud of?
Absolutely. So maybe some context to BC. Before COVID, we were a retailer that spends about an hour with our clients to customize, measure them up for their suiting or shirting purchase. We've always been appointment-based, but a large percentage of our traffic was walk-in, and we always staffed to accommodate that. We always worked to try and maximize the day, of course, like every other retailer. With COVID, we're strictly by appointment only. We are accommodating the odd walk-in on a slow day, but really we're encouraging appointments in advance to ensure both the safety of our clients and our team, that we can give the client that individual attention in a closed environment, an environment that is limited in its capacity, so that if someone is there with a companion, with the bride for an upcoming wedding, that they have enough space to spread out and not fear they're too close or coming into too close a contact with someone else in the showroom. It has changed the model in that we were at once as many as 10 appointments in an hour for our busiest stores, and today that is limited to as many as 3 in an hour. So reduced capacity equals reduced sales. There is less demand. Probably in this call, few people are wearing sweats as opposed to suits as they would have in the past. But what we've seen with the one-on-one, with the reduced capacity, is an increased labor utilization rate, a much higher, much better use of payroll overall. We've seen an improvement on all of our KPIs, whether it's AOV or even our out-of-the-box fit, because our best team is working more closely with the staff, with the clients in this capacity. We're pleased that our staff feel safe in the environment because we are, in mandating masks and have since the very beginning, in many cases, before either local legislation required it or the state. So we've been able to have that close contact with clients without fear, theirs or our teams. It's been a big shift, but we've rolled with it. It's been some months now, and we are seeing sales start to return to higher levels from where we were post reopening.
And just thinking about your teams there, as you mention it, how have your people responded, and how have you helped support them so that they can deliver an awesome experience?
Absolutely. Well, we took the time during closure to have the teams build the SOPs to reopen. So we encouraged small groups, breakout groups, and a number of different SOPs across the business, but most importantly with safety and reopening, to do their own research and come up with solutions so that it wasn't top down, so that we could say that way where we were going to operate and organize our showrooms post reopening was one that everyone believed in, that our teams believed in. And that seems to have worked in that we've had no pushback at all. There are strict SOPs around gloves, cleaning, hand sanitizing, etc. And that seems to have put the team at ease and, touches risk-free as well.
Super. Thank you, Dean. Mark, I'd like to shift the conversation over to you. How have your physical experiences, how have they really shifted? Because it's kind of key in your world, right?
Yeah, we're kind of unique. We were partially open in phases. We opened October of 2019. Our Nickelodeon amusement park, our ice rink, our ski hill. The retail was still not open at that time, and we were planning to open and have our grand opening of retail and the DreamWorks water park on March 19th. Obviously, that didn't happen, so we kind of had to pull things back. Fortunately, we're now opening October 1st, which is just a few days away, or a week away, and that will actually include all our attractions and the beginnings of our retail and food and beverage. For us, we're obviously high touch in our experiences and attractions, and the first thing that I wanted to do was really do everything we can to be transparent about what we're doing for our guests, and studying a lot of what Disney was doing. We're kind of fortunate that they opened before us in Florida, and other parts of the world, so we're studying a lot of that. So we're a different situation than I would say a traditional shopping center, just given the attractions that we have, and the kind of customers that we bring in. But we did start this initiative with Hackensack Meridian Hospital that we announced a week ago, which is called Dream Safe. And then it talks about everything we're doing, from hand sanitization, wipe downs, requiring everyone to wear a mask, the training that our dream makers go through as they come into this new world that we're entering. We're also going to be coming out with an app that is very focused on the Dream Safe initiative, where our guests can obviously see what we're doing, but we're asking them to check in before they arrive. And it's not mandatory. But it requires them to check in and, oops, oh my gosh. Sorry. It requires them to check in before they arrive to our facility. So there's a lot of changes were happening. We had to implement all the signage, digital signage, and all the things that would require our guests to become really feel very safe. And this will be our first opening. We actually will be opening our retail for the first time at American Dream. So we had to work with each retailer to really get them to understand what we're doing and where we're going, to become very safe for our guests to come to our facility and our center.
Brilliant. Well, firstly, good luck for was it next week, I guess. Yeah, fingers crossed, absolutely. And I love what you've been doing, thinking about benchmarking, thinking about looking over the fence, so to speak, at what Disney are doing. What's been sort of perhaps the biggest takeaway that you took from looking at how Disney or other retailers or physical locations are doing?
I think a lot of times everyone's looking at safety for the guests. I think the hardest part is ensuring the safety of your team. What we like to call internally our dream makers, and making sure that they're also safe. And I think we want to make sure that we're looking at it in both ways. And I think Disney was doing a good job with that. And just given obviously the culture, I think Starbucks is another one that you read about, and they opened so quickly and did it so effectively. They also just really, what I love about what these two companies have done is they really doubled down on their digital initiatives. I know for myself, I'm ordering in advance before I go to Starbucks. I run in, I pick it up. I wasn't doing that before the pandemic as much as I would think I'm going to be doing moving forward. And that's something else that we're focusing on. I think for me, I come from a digital technology background. So a lot of my roadmap and items that I may have wanted to do over a 24-month period, we've accelerated, and we did during this lockdown of the last 7 months. So we're really excited to kind of roll out a lot of the digital initiatives that we're going to be coming out with, and allowed us to kind of hone in with the team that we are kind of ramping up here, where originally was maybe not a key focus because we're just so focused on opening.
Sure, that's really interesting. So, Chris, just as we sort of begin to wrap up our first part of the conversation, you have a great viewpoint as to sort of the bigger picture of retail. What are you seeing, particularly as you start to look at some of the more mass market retailers rather than perhaps some of the high touch point retailers that we're lucky enough to share this time with today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really interesting too, especially in terms of the context of who we have on the panel today, especially when you look at them in relation to, say, what's happening in grocery or maybe what's happening in other specialty retailers or malls. I think, you talked about pre and post COVID. In a lot of ways, what matters for physical retail is still the same. And what the pandemic is forcing is just saying to physical retailers, look, you really have to understand your brand and you have to understand what your stores are all about. Like, so for example, one thing I always talk about, and this is where I disagree with what Kim shared in the beginning, where I don't necessarily think people are going to yearn for more consumer action. I think they're going to yearn for whatever it is that a retailer or a brand provides to their customers and how they answer the why for the stores exist. And so, in my opinion, stores have always existed for 5 key reasons. They've been a place of inspiration. They've been a place of convenience, a place of immediate gratification, a place of taction. And by taction, I mean the ability to touch, to try products on, to do all the things you want to do to get confidence in a purchase that you're making. And then, of course, this your social experience of just being somewhere out in the world, either by yourself or with other people. Now, different brands have different promises around that, especially in the physical world. And so you look at the panel that's with us today, well, you can see while there's still an interest there in terms of, from the consumer standpoint, why that stuff matters. Like you look at Sephora, well, they still are about inspiration. You can do inspiration in that physical world differently than you can online. It's about the serendipitous discovery, right? Jeff talked about that. For Mark, like same thing. Like he's all about the social experience of going somewhere, of doing something. And then, of course, with Indochino, you have the taction element. I want to feel the suit. I want the confidence it's going to fit right. Because God knows now, if I'm still going in to buy a suit, chances are it's for a really, really important occasion. And I want to make sure that's right. And so what I think you're seeing here fundamentally is that retailers are having to grapple with the fact that they need an answer to the why across those psychological dimensions. Now, you contrast that with, say, like department stores. It's really hard to figure out at a mass level what their reason for being is, and it's you can kind of sense why they are struggling, excuse me, relative to other people in the marketplace. And then you've got grocery sitting on the other side where people need that stuff, but you're seeing them start to adapt in different ways in terms of convenience, digital capabilities. Mark alluded to it, where they can still do a lot of what they've always been able to do, but now they're just doing it differently. And the whys of how a store exists, both in the physical and the digital world for them within that category, are starting to change. And that's fundamentally interesting.
So wise, and it's a handy pivot into the second part of the conversation, and really interesting hearing your thoughts about what Kim was mentioning earlier. One of the things that really sprung out to me was about tech fatigue, and actually how is that going to play out and play into or against the in-store experience. Dean, you're obviously very closely interlinked with your different online channels. How do you think that? Well, firstly, I suppose, do you think there is going to be a tech fatigue element, and how is that going to shift your online experience thinking of the future?
We will continue to live with the two channels side by side, and in fact, to the extent that we don't see them as separate channels, but one that supports one area of the business that supports the other. Most of our journeys begin online with some investigation, shopping of, looking at different options before they're making an appointment on our website and coming into our showroom to shop with us. And then the repeat business is more often than not online because their profile is dialed in. They're able to shop with us with confidence in their second and third purchase. The showrooms overall is a retail concept that I think is underrepresented out there. So many retailers, and I've worked for a number of them that have filled the physical spaces with piles and piles of inventory, and sometimes it was the right in the wrong place or the wrong in the right place, and that investment wasn't maximized. The ability to fulfill next day, same week at the worst, or pick up in store allows us to use some of these, as retailers, the B and C store locations as more fulfillment in one way, but a showroom overall where there's a good assortment, the best assortment available to see, to touch, if not to purchase then. This is an area where online melding with bricks and mortar, as is ours, is I think an opportunity for many other categories beyond made-to-measure suiting or the odd one here and there that we see. The spaces need to bring the brand to life and inform and inspire. Some of those things that we touched on earlier in the conversation, they're not going away, but certainly we have to bring the online channel, always need to be an online channel, into the fold, that it is an extension, it is where the journey begins and oftentimes where the journey ends for physical retail as well.
Sure, that's really interesting. And Jeff, I'm keen to ask your thoughts on a similar vein, actually. As we sort of get increasingly into the world of omnichannel, whether you like that word or not, how are you seeing your in-store experience merge with your online experience?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dean. I think that, our client doesn't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm app, or I'm going to shop online, or I'm going to shop, in the store. They just think I need to, get something from Sephora today. So they may start that journey in app, learning about something. They may come into the store because they want to experience it or talk to a beauty advisor. And then, of course, they may finish that up, by just ordering it, from home later on after they've done more research. So, our best clients shop all of our channels. And so COVID has shifted that a little bit, in that many were forced to only shop online, either because the stores were closed in their area, or because they're immune compromised and they just don't want to, go out into public as much. So what we have seen now is that there's less discovery, and so what our focus is, that the online experience can be as much about discovery, and that digital experience can be as fun and easy and simple as what it is shopping in our stores. I mean, we always get such great feedback from our clients when they come into our stores, because it's exciting and it's fun and the music is playing, and we've got a lot of people in there, and our beauty advisors are so knowledgeable, and you get an opportunity to be like a kid in a candy store and play and try on new things and try things that you never thought you would like, and experience new opportunities. Typically, a lot of times, what's happened with the digital experience that is very task oriented. So I need mascara, or I'm out of foundation, or I need to go buy something, shampoo. And so you log on, you go and you say, I'm going to buy this, and I buy it. And you're not really spending the time doing discovery as you would if you walked into one of our stores. And even though you may walk into one of our stores thinking, hey, I'm just here to pick up foundation, you end up walking out with 10 other things because they caught your eye, or someone suggested it, or you saw something that you've never seen before. So what we want to do is make sure that the discovery is also part of our digital experience as well. And we want to make sure that we really have that opportunity to surprise and delight the client, making sure that they understand that no matter where they're shopping with us, no matter where that journey starts or where it ends, that they have the opportunity to learn and experience it. So that may be reserve online and pick up in store. It may be BOPIS. It may be a situation where they do all of their research at home so that they can have limited exposure once they may try one of our beauty advisor say, hey, is this the right one? Is this the right thing? So there's just a lot of different ways, and we will, of course, shift. That's what retailers do, right? No matter what's going on in the world, we pivot, we shift, adjust. Retail is all about the details. If it's September 11th and we're dealing with that, or if it's a downturn in the economy because of a recession, if it's a global pandemic, retailers are here to make sure that we meet our clients' demands, and that we and we come up with new ideas and innovative ideas before they even think they need it. It's why great retailers like Starbucks came out with the app, right? Who knew that they'd have billions of dollars stored, and that people would do that? But now everyone loves it. We heard earlier about, hey, I never used to order online in advance, but now I do it. How many of these things will translate after the pandemic is over? And we want to make sure that we continue to operate in the best way possible. We always want to make sure that we are coming up with new ways to innovate, to create something that is super inviting, be it safety or fun or just inviting for our clients. And I think that's really what the pandemic has done for us right now, is to blend even more so that omni-channel experience. As much as I hate that word, it is not really what consumers think of. It's really what retailers talk a lot about. But what it really is we look at everything through the lens of our client, through a lens of our consumer. How can we make them happy? How can we surprise and delight them? How can we do things that are unique and different so that they keep coming back for more, and knowing that we are, the beauty expert in prestige beauty, and can give them that. So that's
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Think about omni-channel today. We just think about shopping when we've got our consumer hat on. And Mark, thinking about the shopping trip out, how are you going to be looking at the consumer changes that we've heard about today, and are continuing to draw more insight, and how the behaviour is changing with Opus, etc.? How are you going to shift the experience you're providing in your centres?
There you go. So through this entire pandemic, we actually redid our entire ticketing platform that's connected to our attractions. And the reasons for that was we needed to allow customers to choose their arrival time. And it would then allows us to understand who's coming when. It allows us to kind of control the amount of tickets we're selling at a certain slot. It allows us to communicate to customers who haven't arrived yet, which again allows us to also even plan ahead of time in terms of our operating costs. So the ticketing platform was a key initiative for us to change. Separate from that, everybody's been talking about curbside and so on. I kind of punted on that for now because I really want to see where the customer behavior is going to be going. We are testing curbside at Mall of America. And in some ways, I almost want to test it just for our food vendors and food and beverage, just given how I think customer behavior is so used to doing pickup of food themselves, less pickup of retail. It also becomes a more of a logistic kind of thing if you want to start doing curbside. So for us, it was also just changing one, the ticketing platform, changing our app to become more informative around what we're doing and what to expect. I think the biggest thing that we're changing is also expectations. When a customer comes, a lot of times they're used to just walking in to a store. You're now seeing lineups being created and wait times to get into a store because of capacity issues. And I think the way that you can control the customer service side of that is through communication around what to expect when you arrive. So we've been doubling down a lot on that in terms of being able to communicate to our guests prior to their arrival. Second, and not related too much to this, or your question was thinking about our e-commerce strategy. And with buy online, pick up in store, for me, it was, am I really going to really be competing with a true e-commerce platform like an Amazon? Our commerce for us, we're going to be starting with our IP. We have great relationships with Nickelodeon, with DreamWorks, and Angry Birds, and we run obviously all the attractions and experiences, but we also run the full retail experience within our centers. So we're going to bring all those experiences into our e-commerce strategy to start. So that's been something that we've been working on as well, and we actually just launched live streaming at Mall of America, which I've been behind in terms of that initiative, and testing around that. And for me, I kind of look at what we have as like content generation within Mall of America, within American Dream, and how do we give our guests and our customers a way to access that content regardless of where they are. And that's really been an initiative of ours and something that we're going to work on with our partners like Sephora at American Dream and others who are opening up here. Is we don't want their sales to be limited to the four walls. We want their sales to be limited to the depth of our customers that we can get to. And we're going to create these other distribution channels to enable them to do that. And I think that's where it's going to change. It's going to be the ones that really figure out how to leverage their distribution channels and using technology to enable that. The thing that we're focused on here during this downtime.
Super. It sounds really interesting. We may have a couple of minutes for some questions. So if you're watching and you'd love to ask a question of one of these amazing people here today, then do drop it into the chat, and we'll carve out a little bit of time just at the end. But just before we do get to that point, Chris, I'd like to take a bit of a pivot point here. We're talking about in-store experience an awful lot, and have continued over the past few years, really. But Chris, what is it that we're missing? What's the big, 500-pound gorilla, massive elephant in the room that no one's talking about, but we absolutely should be talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think, wow, on that one, I think there's probably two schools of thread. I think actually what Jeff was alluding to too, and to your question around kind of tech fatigue, I don't buy into that theory either. I mean, when in the course of human history have you ever heard, you know what, I'm going to stop using technology in a way to make my life simple and easier? That's just never happened. It's not in our human DNA and our nature, and so we're going to continue to do that. And I think COVID, to Jeff's point, number one, what you're seeing on the periphery now is a ton of innovation and activity by tech companies and startups into what does discovery look like in the digital world. Jeff talked about it. You've also got, Instagram going full bore into, let's make our Instagram feeds those places of digital discovery. E-commerce has always been a place of search to find, but search to discover is still unexplored territory. And so, despite all the issues we've had in retail, especially when you start looking at the malls again, that whole thing hasn't even happened yet. A new commerce platform for us as consumers to discover products and engage with products in ways that we never have before, whether it's Instagram, whether it's things that Shopify is doing, new startups like the Yes, all of those types of companies are going to go after that. And we as consumers are going to adapt to that because that's what we tend to do. The second point I would make along those lines, in terms of the other elephant in the room, we haven't even mentioned it to this point, is Amazon. And one of the things the pandemic is making happen, as we said, is it's focusing on safety. Well, by focusing on safety and how you make sure customer and employees have a great experience, you're also by default in some ways making things more convenient. And Amazon continues to up the bar in that in everything they do. And so that's why I continue to look hard at what they're doing, like specifically in the grocery space, in terms of their new store at Woodland Hills, with all the ability to return product, all the different ways to pick up and have product delivered, whether it's curbside, in store, to your home. Those things all up the bar in convenience, but most importantly, it's also everything they're doing in computer vision, where technology is getting to the point where they now have this 10,000 square foot grocery store where you can walk into that store, take whatever you want off the shelf, walk out the door, and you pay like you're getting out of an Uber. That's a really convenient way to shop. So regardless of the psychological dimensions I talked about before and how you position your brand, if those things start to permeate themselves into how retail is actually done from a physical operating perspective, and the architectures start to be built to accommodate that over time, that too could separate the haves from the have-nots. So for me, it's really those two things. It's how is discovery going to take shape online? And then how is the physical infrastructure specifically built around computer vision and better shopping experiences also going to take hold?
That's so good. We could have a whole day just on those topics, I'm sure. So we've got a question here from Beth. Thank you, Beth. So do you think that the store program will change? Will square footage increase and the number of locations decrease to support all of the store functions? What are your thoughts, Jeff? Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, we actually don't think that the physical plant of our stores will change very much. Pre-COVID, we were planning to open 100 stores, and obviously that got interrupted because of the pandemic. However, we are still moving forward next year with opening 70 locations in the U.S. and Canada, and they're the same size as we had before. So, what we do want to do is we want to make it easy and convenient. We want to get closer to our client. We want to be where she lives, works, plays, and make it simple for her to be able to experience our brand and all that we have to offer. So, I don't think that we're going to increase and create mini distribution centers and have fewer of them. I think that's not what people really want in retail. I think what people want in retail is a way to escape the challenges of the day, to have fun, to discover, to enjoy themselves, to maybe hang out with friends. And we have to also remember this pandemic is not going to last forever. While it may seem that it's going to last forever, we will at some point have a vaccine. We will get back to normal. Some of the things that happened will be carried over, but we want to always have retail be a fun and exciting experience.
Super, and I think that's a lovely way to wrap up the conversation there, Jeff. And thank you very much. we've covered off so many different topics in this 45 minutes. We've touched on some really key things that it sounds very simple, but they're easy to get right. Looking after your people so that they can deliver everything you need for your customers. You're thinking about benchmarking, thinking about integrating your channels and being where your customer is and how they want to live. Communicating clearly to your guests, your shoppers, your visitors, and live streaming as well, which again we touched on. And there's a huge amount that we could dive into there. I think that's certainly going to be something really interesting to jump into. So I'd just like to take a moment and say thank you to the four of you. It's been a really interesting conversation. As I thought would happen, I'd love to have continued it on for so long. But it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris, and Jeff, and Mark, and Dean. Really appreciate all your insights you've shared today.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Ollie.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks again.
Thank you, guys. So I think we're going to be joined by Jason now as I hand the digital reins back to the amazing team. And this is a great event, Jason, I might say. Thank you so much for inviting me along. It's a shame it couldn't be in real life, but look forward to that at some stage in the future, perhaps.
That is the reality. And look, thank you so much, Ollie, for hosting that panel. It was really, really a great discussion. And also, look, a huge thank you to our panelists as well. It's such a privilege at Retail Spaces Almost Live to feature brands like yourselves, but also your expertise and wisdom. It's really great to see and hear your insights on how you guys are thinking about everything that's to come. And also a shout out to Chris Walton. I know you're not a retailer, but Chris has a wonderful blog and podcast called OmniTalk that he runs with Anne, who I see in the chat there as well. So make sure you check that out. Maybe you want to even message Chris or any of the other panelists or attendees that we have here at Retail Spaces Almost Live. You can actually message people directly, and there have been some messages flying about so far. So if someone has reached out to you, it is possible. Just head up to the right part of your screen there. You'll see some notification icons, and just make sure and just see if someone has reached out to you. Look, we're going to head on to our next session right now because time is tight. But before we do, here is another message from our sponsors.
Hi, Yang, it's Tim. I have a Zoom meeting with a retailer in 5 minutes. Okay, I'll be on.
Hi, it's Tim with the Beam team.
Hi, my name is Rick Sung, VP of Sales and Marketing for Nest. First, I hope you and your families are safe and well. Since we can't be together this year, I hope to connect with some of you at the Almost Live event. Hopefully next year we can all be together, and I will have an open tab for all that are there. Please take care of yourself and be well.
Thank you, Nest, and also thank you, Beam Team. I got to admit, I didn't really know what was happening there in that in the woods at first, but thanks for your creativity. And just speaking of sponsors as well, I want to give you guys another reminder that you can at any time head to our marketplace, which is here on the left, and you can have a look around and get more acquainted with our vendor partners. And I have just heard from our team, I can confirm that there are some giveaways happening there at the marketplace. You can actually get up for grabs is an Apple Watch, maybe some iPods, no, not iPods, AirPods, and also a UV light, I think. So make sure you do head to the marketplace and have a good look around. Look, I do want to say, again, we're really appreciative that you've joined us here at Retail Spaces Almost Live, but it isn't the only thing that we're producing in the fall. And I just want to take a moment now to shamelessly plug something that we have kicking off in October. It's really great to come together like we're doing today and tomorrow to share big ideas and just hear how our fellow retailers are dealing with all the uncertainty at hand. But, you know, there's nothing like getting into a room with a bunch of like-minded people and really digging into the nuts and bolts of just some of the challenges that we're facing in our lives at the moment. And that is what our Mastermind series is all about. Normally at our live event, Retail Spaces Live, we'd be doing this kind of thing in our deep dive discussions, but obviously we can't do that right now. So starting October 8th, we'll be hosting digital mastermind sessions where you can get together with a small group of executives, specifically in store development, design, construction, and facilities, to share what you're going through. You know, share your best practices and really figure out the best way of rolling out your projects in 2021 and beyond. So please, if you're interested, reach out to our team via our website and we can get you into one of those sessions. Right now, we're going to take a bit of a break from content. We've been at this now for more than an hour. You're probably getting a bit tired. You need to shake it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a chance to connect with one another. The thing that I probably miss the most about our live event is how you kind of just fall into these candid conversations, and they're really genuine and they're open because we're in a relaxed setting. And look, obviously we can't have those kind of hallway interactions right now, but just in a moment, you're going to get about as close to that experience as possible. In a minute, you're going to head over to the networking section. And when you're in there, you're going to be randomly paired up with other attendees, and you're going to get a few minutes to be able to talk about whatever you like, just like running into someone at our live event, kind of. then kind of is pretty good right now. After we do that, we're not actually going to be heading back here to the main stage. What we're going to do instead is we're going to be heading out to our breakout discussions. So at 3:40 p.m., once the networking's done, head over to the breakouts, choose something that you'd like to see and be a part of, and jump right in. I hope you enjoy the networking, everybody, and I hope you enjoy those sessions. And later on, we'll see you back here in the main stage for our very last session of our first day.